Hey everyone, my name's Eugene, and this is a quick video on how to download R Studio, as well as how to use Markdown. And so there's a bug in here somewhere. Sorry. Um, okay, so Markdown is really cool. It's going to be especially useful if you are one of my students from the psychometrics course. Um, and if you're completely new to R and R Studio, this is a good video to watch as well. So I'm hoping to walk you through this. Shouldn't be too hard as we get you set up to be able to use R. So if you're in my class, I've embedded the link to R Studio under item generation report right here. Oops, sorry, not sorry. R Markdown, sorry, R Markdown data preparation. And go under assignment materials. The links are going to be r-project.org, and then for RStudio it's going to be rstudio.com/product/rstudio/download2. If you were to do a quick Google search for R and RStudio, you'll go to these same links as well. But just click on these links since they're here already. So it's going to bring you to the first page. It's called Feather Spray. That's the latest version of R, and so we're going to click on that. Oops, sorry, not that. Let's click on download R. That's probably gonna be easier. And let's look for the closest mirror to where you are. So I'm in Missouri, so I'm guessing somewhere in closer to Iowa or Indiana. My geography is not that great, so um, don't penalize me for that. Okay, and it's gonna bring you to the latest package over here. So I'm gonna click on that. It is going to download R for me. Just give it about a minute. Sorry, that bug is still in this room. Yeah, let's click on it and go to continue. Keep going. Agree. And yes, make it available to everyone and install. Put in my administrator password and just let it run. So installing it is pretty easy. It's just like installing any other type of application that you have. Alright, let's close that, move it to trash. Next, let's download R Studio. And where is that link? There you go. So go to R Studio again. You can Google R Studio, it's going to bring you to this link as well. You can see that there are multiple options over here. Some free, some not. I like free, so I'm going to go with the R Studio desktop. That means you're downloading the software itself onto your computer. I'm going to pick Mac OS X because I'm a Mac user. My computer is heating up for whatever reason, I'm not sure. But I'm hoping I can get done with this video before it runs into any problems. So if you're a Mac user, obviously you want to copy to your applications, and then you want to go ahead and open R Studio. Now you don't need to open R before you open R Studio. R Studio is going to open R for you. Open. Alright. So a couple of things over here, let me just clear that. The global environment is basically a space where you store a lot of temporary data sets or different functions. I'm just going to clear that just because I don't really like it being there. Most of my code is going to be on the upper left quadrant of the screen over here. A lot of times the output tends to come up over here, and then the plots tend to come up over here. If you click on plots, you can change obviously the way in which everything is set up. So I just switched the global environment to the bottom left and the console to the right. Just do whatever is most comfortable for you. So close this out. Okay, so I want to show you how to use Markdown, because Markdown is going to be really useful, especially if you're in a class. It's going to streamline the presentation of your code and your results, as well as the questions that correspond to those codes. So I want to show you how to do it from the front end. So go to File and click on New File. And typically, most R programs are going to use R script. We are going to use R Markdown. They're mostly the same. The codes are exactly the same, except the way in which you would place the codes in them are going to be different. So click on R Markdown for now. Let's title this. Actually, I think I already had like a placeholder title. More courses. Data preparation. Let's just override this, just so that I can walk you guys through the steps. Alright, and I want to output it in Word. You can output it in HTML or PDF. Yeah, so let's click on that. Alright, so it's going to show you the title, the output, and some really handy dandy stuff in here. Just some quick introductions about what our Markdown can do. For the purposes of the assignment, you can just go ahead and delete this, unless you just kind of want to tinker around with that, you could. Or just tinker around. That's the best way to learn stuff. Put in your name, so I'm just going to put in my name, and then output it as Word document, put in the date, August the 2nd. Okay. Since I had this window open, let me show you two things. So notice that Markdown is actually saved in a different format compared to a regular R script. A Markdown script is saved in .rmd format. A regular script is saved in .r. So if you ever need to search your Finder for scripts or Markdown scripts, you can always differentiate them based on that. Next thing that I want to show you is I'm going to show you how to make, I don't think you need to do hashtags, but I'm just so used to doing it with regular R. Typically in the regular R script, when you put a hashtag over something, that just means that it's not code. But the way in which R Markdown works is that if you type something into this console, even though it is a code that should run, it's not going to run. It will only run if you insert a chunk over here. So let me just copy and paste. Let me open file. Courses. Sorry, every single time. I need to walk through this. Let's open this. Okay. And let's just say, just copy paste this. Okay, we save this. Save as that. And we'll just override it. It's fine. Okay, so like I said before, if it's a regular R script, typically if you go to a line of code, and then press Command Enter, it will run. But this will not do that because this is R and Markdown. If you want to embed a code that's going to run, you need to go to Insert, R, and then copy and paste that code in there. And that's how you do it. That's how it runs. So you can see the console over here that it successfully labeled this particular data set using the read.csv function, and we are naming it as master data set. And you can see over here it has 355 observations and 26 variables. And why this extra step? Well, this will become relevant once we knit things together to make it a Word document. Couple of other cool things that you could do in here if you want to organize your chunks. So you can name a chunk especially if you have several chunks. So let's take this for example and insert a chunk. We can name this, let's just say import file. And the output, let's just use document default. That's basically showcode and output. Right. Let's just name this summary. And so when you click over here at the very bottom, you could see that you can jump from one chunk to another. So we have, where was it? When did I need that? Yeah, import file. And then summary, right? Okay. Import file and summary. There you go. Chunk 1, import file, and chunk 2, summary. So how do you turn in your assignment? So I don't need your R&D file. This is going to be an R&D file because you're going to knit it together and output it as a Word document. It's really nice because it really does streamline the presentation of the questions and the codes and the outputs, and so it's going to help with diagnosing and grading as well, which is why I wanted to show you the stuff. Just a FYI, the first time you run knit, it may tell you to install a bunch of stuff. Those are just some packages. So if you're not familiar with packages are just basically different, I guess, package algorithms. Then you will need to download from different sources in order to run specific types of analyses. And so knit does require some packages. It will tell you what packages to install, but just go ahead and install them. And move on. So let's see if we can run this. Okay, we already did that, and then let's get a summary. So we can see that you can see gender, level, advising. Those are the categorical variables in this data set. And then we have question 1 through question 23. So this is actually a survey that we have over here. All right, so let's just say we're done with whatever assignment that we're working on, and we want to output it into a Word document. So I want you to go to knit, click on knit to Word. Okay, there you go. You'll notice that it says read only. To save a copy of this document, click duplicate. This is just really weird because when I try to do this, it is going to say I am not able to do this. And then if I close this out and actually go to the Word document that was knitted together, it actually was saved. So there's some weird bug over here. But notice a couple of things as we compare the Word document that was produced and knitted together. Sorry, I have a small screen. So you can see how this kind of translates. So the title is at the very top, and then you have name, you have the date that goes with that. Anytime you put two hashtags in front of a sentence, it's going to make it larger, bold it, and then underneath that, it's going to be the code that you put into that chunk. It's right here. Same thing. So accuracy, use summary function because they were hashtags or they were preceded by hashtags. They come out as bolder blue ones. And then you can see over here, this is the code, and this is the code, and this is the output. right here. So it very nicely outputs the code and the output all together. Let's see what else. Um, Another nice feature of Markdown is that if you're doing an assignment that's going to require you to write code that is going to build upon each other, such that you create a formula or a function in step 4 that produces a certain value in step 5 that's going to be used in subsequent steps in 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you screw up in step 4, all you gotta do is just change that code in step 4, and all the subsequent codings are going to be changed 5 through 10 as well. So that's pretty nice. So that you don't need to redo the codes if you make one small mistake. One unique thing or quirky thing about R Markdown compared to the regular R file is that you want to make sure your data file, which is ds data-sec. Let me just delete that. Your data, you want to make sure that your data file is in the same folder or the same file destination as your R&D file. You could set the working directory just like you would do in regular R if you wanted to separate the R&D file and the data file, but that's gonna probably give you some issues. So let's just keep them both in the same area. So that's probably one quirky thing about R Markdown, is that you can't really separate the physical placing in your computer in regards to where the data and where the R&D file is at. What other things? Notice here that when I imported this data set is already in .csv, and so you can actually open it in Excel. And this is kind of how it looks like in Excel. So you have the variables on the first row, and then you have the participants in the rest of the rows over here, with the columns indicating different variables. For what was recommended to me is that you should use the read.csv function in order to read this into your global environment to start messing around with stuff in here, because if you were to try to say use one of these shortcuts, and I'm trying to see where is this shortcut. Is there more? There you go, import dataset. So import dataset from Excel. Short story is don't use it. It uses a different package. I think it uses read_CSV as opposed to read.csv. And what it's trying to do is that it's basically trying to cram a whole bunch of information into the data set, and it's making it cranky if you're trying to use other packages to run different types of analyses. So let's just avoid that altogether if at all possible, and just write the simple code. Apparently the shortcut to import from SPSS works really well, so feel free to use that if you want to do so. And that's it. That's all I have in regards to how do you download R and RStudio, and making an R&D file using the hashtags and putting in chunks and knitting it together so you have a word output. That's all, and stay tuned for my next video on getting started, on viewing the data visually as well as handling missing data.